really think why you want to be rich. After watching an episode of The Diary of a CEO, he interviewed Ramit Sethi, the author of I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And there was a part of the podcast where they were discussing how Ramit would get students or people in his life. He would ask the question of, what does your dream life look like? And 99% of the answers are, I want to do whatever I want, whenever I want, wherever I want. Basically, freedom. Then instead of accepting that shallow answer, because we'll get to in a second why it's such a shallow answer, he asks, okay, so you have the money, what do you do with it? And it seems like most people haven't thought that far ahead with when they do become rich. And then that's a whole nother concept of it's never really enough. So from what I've taken from that episode is you got to define what is your rich life, which the author that Seth Bartlett interviewed on the podcast talked about a lot in his book. Like I've skimmed through his book. Essentially, you want to figure out or write down what does your rich life look like, because he believes you can have a rich life. You essentially have to work out what you prioritize the most and cut down costs on everything else. So if you value going out traveling around the world, maybe instead of going out for takeout, you save that money and put it towards the thing that you care about the most, which is traveling the world. It's essentially prioritization. You can get the most out of life by prioritizing what you believe you're going to get the most value or worth out of, depending on the activity or the product. And now, reflecting upon myself, I don't think about being rich necessarily, because I've had discussions with friends how they want to be rich simply because they can have the freedom to do anything. But I believe you haven't thought that far ahead, because you sort of go, I just want to be rich. Like you compartmentalize it, or you package it, put it in the back of the brain and not really think about it, and you just keep on grinding, essentially, without really thinking, what kind of life do I actually want? Because that's another concept I heard from Jimmy Carr, a comedian from England, you've probably heard of him, who was also on The Diary of a CEO, talking about how really you don't want the money, you want what money can buy you. So instead of saying I want $1 million, actually write down or think about what you would spend or buy with that $1 million. Because I notice sometimes it's out of ego to go, I feel a lot better walking down the street if I had $1 million in the bank. It's like social proof. It means I'm better. Like, I understand that perfectly, because especially if you're like a young male where you haven't really developed any value or any worth, or perceived worth, you tend to gravitate towards something that our society places a lot of emphasis, which is money, which I don't believe is something wrong. If you want to become wealthy or financially free, that is a noble cause. But I believe, rather than picturing the stacks and piles of cash you have, think about what you can spend with it. What you can spend to create a more meaningful life, I believe. I've explained this probably in a video about materialism, how it's not going to make you happy. I sort of believe this new upcoming entrepreneur, or concept of an entrepreneur, where instead of spending on Lamborghinis or Porsches or Bugattis or Dubai trips or big mansions in Dubai, instead They buy experience. They buy education. Stuff that's probably more meaningful than an object. Simply because they can take that experience with them wherever. It cannot be taken, as is clearly evident from the Tate case. So I want you to, well, this is an actionable step, like journal about what kind of future you envision, almost like buying with the money you'll have. Like if you want to, I'll give myself as an example. I believe I'm going to be the kind of guy who cuts down costs on almost everything. I don't care where I live. I'll live with 6 other housemates if I have to cut down costs on living. But I'll eat probably the same thing every day of my life. I can eat fruits, beef mince, rice. That's probably it. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I'll probably save that money, I don't know, once every year, go to Japan for 3 months with mates and have a leisurely time overseas and experiencing most of the world. Sort of like that. Because I don't really care about having, perhaps I own one sports car. One. And that would be like a Porsche 911, but even, I would be happy with a Nissan Cube. Like I know it sounds like I could be like a millionaire, but I own like a Nissan Cube simply because I like the Japanese style of the I think they're called K cars, which is very tiny cars. They're very cute looking. But simply because I prioritize not the social proof, but actually the enjoyment I have with these objects or these experiences. Even I'll probably spend money on the gadgets that I use. Like I don't really spend a lot of money on clothing. Like I don't spend so much on shoes. Like I only have like one pair of shoes that I own. Like this is what I prioritize. Like I prioritize more on my education and probably experience above everything else. But if you get most out of life owning a pair of Jordans, for example, like Jordan shoes, like go for it. But if you prioritize that, you have to sacrifice other things. That you can't make everything a priority. That's the beauty of wealth. You can make everything a priority. But I've sort of taken the stance of, I want to have so much money that I don't need anything. I really don't. Like I have so much that I don't need it. And that, I believe, is the true definition of wealth. You have so much abundance that you don't need it, or you push it away, or be disciplined about it. But that's what I believe. So if you find this video useful, thank you for watching.